Hello, I hope everybody is doing well. For this lesson today, we are going to be looking at narrative writing. We're going to talk about our prompt for this week and next week and what you should include in that narrative. Before we get started, though, I want to make sure that everybody knows what their assignments are. For this week, the week of May 18th until Friday, May 22nd, your assignment that is going to be graded for credit is answering the text-dependent questions for the short story 11. You need to have done that. You should have done it by now if you're on schedule, but that needs to be handed in by Friday for credit. This narrative writing prompt is going to actually go into next week. So this will be next week's assignment, but you should get started on it now. This is not something you can do all in one day. During this lesson, we're going to quickly go over the writing prompt. We're going to talk about what to include in a narrative. We're going to talk about ways to get started in your planning, and then how to submit your assignment when you're done. So your prompt for this week is, after reading 11 by Sandra Cisneros, continue the story. Write a narrative from Rachel's point of view, explaining what happens next in the story. So when we stopped at the end of 11, Rachel had just found out that this ugly sweater that her teacher forced her to wear because somebody said it was hers. We found out from another student, oh wait, that's actually my sweater, sorry, as if it was no big deal. And it's also Rachel's birthday, so she's just having a rough day. So I want you to continue that narrative on. Here are a couple ideas that I had. Now you may have different ideas and that's totally fine, but I thought of two different points that you could pick up at. The first idea is that when 11 ends, the bell rings and the students go out to lunch and we find out that that sweater actually belongs to Phyllis Lopez. So one idea you could do is write about the rest of Rachel's school day. What happens at lunch? Does Rachel give Phyllis the sweater? What does she say to her? What does her teacher, Mrs. Price, say? What do all the other students do? How does Rachel feel about that? And another example, another idea that I thought of is that it's Rachel's birthday. So how does Rachel's day go at home when it's time for her birthday? Like when her parents are all excited and they have cake and presents. Is she happy? Does she really start to feel 11? Or does she get really upset and cry and storm out? You all have turned 11, so you have experiences with your 11th birthday. Now, as I said, these are just two examples that I thought of. If you think of another thing to include, something else, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure that it's believable. Rachel's an 11-year-old girl in school who just had to wear a really ugly sweater that wasn't her and is super upset. So we're not going to be writing a narrative that makes no sense at all. That has to be tied into it somehow. When you are writing your narrative, there's certain things that need to be included. Now remember, a narrative is different than an essay. You're not explaining what happened in the story 11. You're actually going to be writing your own story. You are writing what happens next. So you have characters already that you need to include in your narrative, in your story. Obviously, Rachel, our narrator. This is from Rachel's point of view. Throughout the story 11, we see the I think this, or this happens to me, and I. Those I's are Rachel. So when you're writing, you need to be writing as if you are Rachel. There's also other characters. Phyllis, the girl whose sweater it actually is. Rachel's teacher, Mrs. Price. Mama, Papa, anyone else in her family. So you need to include different characters because obviously there are characters and stories, but you also need to develop those characters. They are going to say things. There's going to be conversation between Rachel and those characters. Those characters are going to do things, so include that information in your narrative. You also need to include the setting. Where is this taking place? It should be clear to me. Is this at school? Is this at lunch? Is this on the way home from school? Is this at home? Make that clear and don't just say in the cafeteria. Like, try to develop that. Describe the setting. What is it like? Does the cafeteria have that weird middle school cafeteria smell if you're there? When she's at home, how does it feel? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? You need to include a plot, so what's actually happening, the events of your narrative. What's like that high point, the action of the narrative. So in the story 11, that high point is when Rachel is forced to put on the sweater and she just starts crying. So it's like there's a lot of action and tension there. Your narrative should also have a high point with a lot of action or tension. And make sure you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then one thing that our author, Sandra Cisneros, did a really good job of was including Rachel's emotions in the story. All this talk about how she knows that she's 11, but she doesn't feel 11. She feels 3 because she's crying, so on and so on. So continue that in your narrative. Kind of jump off from that point of this idea that, yes, she's 11, but she also has all of the other ages in her too, and use that as part of Rachel's emotions. So you want to plan your narrative before you just start writing. Great writers plan things out. There are so many different ways to plan out what you're going to do when you're writing. The very first thing that I would do is reread 11 and look for things that you missed, or pay attention to those little details that are going to help you with your writing. Pay attention to Rachel's emotions, pay attention to the characters, how they speak, how they talk, how they interact with each other. And then there are different ways that you can actually start planning. One way is to just write an outline, like quickly write out, not even using complete sentences. Just write out what you think will happen at the beginning of your narrative, what will happen in the middle, and what will happen at the end. And then you can fill it all in with the details later as you actually start writing. One thing that you could also do, and I think you guys would really like this because I know this class is super artistic, is kind of start out by sketching what you think would happen. So instead of outlining, use a sketch, map out where your story is going to take you, and then again, add the words and the details later on. Or you can use some type of graphic organizer, use boxes or circles to plan the beginning, the middle, the end. I'm going to show you on the next slide. It's a good graphic organizer that I've used a lot for narrative writing, and you could totally copy this really quickly into a notebook or a piece of paper, where you use your first box to briefly write out who your characters are, where and when it's going to be, and what's happening in the story. Then in the first, next, then, you write like the plot points, the actual actions in order. And then at the end, you kind of wrap up the story. How does it end? And remember, with graphic organizers, with all of these things, you're outlining, you're sketching, or you're organizing. These don't have to be complete thoughts with super detailed settings yet. This is just how you're planning. However, when you do go to eventually write the narrative, that's when you need to make sure that you add all those really important details, that things are written in complete sentences, that everything does go in order. You're not going to submit to me this. This is how you plan what you're going to write, to make sure everything is in order, to make sure it's in a logical way. Then you take these ideas and write it out as you see every other story written out with complete sentences and paragraphs and details. And that is what you will submit to me. To submit that, it's going to be written and submitted in Unified Classroom. Unified Classroom has a feature on the assignments where you can actually write the assignment there. So you're going to find the assignment that is titled 11 Narrative. That assignment will be on our class page on the subpage 11 Narrative, which is the same place as where this essay is. You can also find that assignment in your list of upcoming assignments. If you go to the left-hand side of your screen on class pages and click progress, shows you all of your upcoming assignments. One of them is titled 11 Narrative. I can't really show you that on my screen because my screen looks different from yours. But during Zoom class on Thursday, I'll see if I can log in as a student and post that directions. When you get to the assignment, you're going to click the assignment. Then I'll have the directions there. And then at the very bottom, there will be an attachment. You're going to click that attachment and it will open up in Unified Classroom. It'll just be a blank Word document. On that Word document, you click the pencil, which I believe is in the top, somewhere on the page, top right. And that allows you to edit the document. And then you just start typing your narrative there. And you can save it and then go back to it. So you can write half of it one day, save it, and go back and finish it the next day. This narrative needs to be submitted on Unified Classroom in that document by Wednesday, May 27th. That is a week from the day that this video is being posted. So you have a whole week to work on this. And that is plenty of time. That is Wednesday today, Thursday tomorrow, which we will have a Zoom class and go over this in even more detail. Friday. I'm not even including the weekends or the fact that Monday's a holiday. Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's 5 school days. And you also have the weekend if you want to work on it over the weekend. So that is plenty of time to write a good, solid, detailed narrative. So if you submit to me 2 paragraphs, I'm going to hand it back out to you and I'm going to ask you to do it again. If you have any questions or want to see my beautiful face, because I want to see all your beautiful faces, come to our Zoom class tomorrow, Thursday, May 21st at 12. The link for our Zoom class is on our class page. It is also in Microsoft Teams. It's the same link for all of our ELA classes. So if you have last week's ELA class link, it's the same one with the same room number and password. Hope to see you there. Come with any questions that you have. Come with any ideas of what you think would be a good idea for your narratives. I can't wait to see you all. I can't wait to read these because you guys are so good at writing narratives. Have a great day. Go ahead and get started writing. Bye.